This is America Daily, bringing you the best in truthful news updates and in-depth reports happening now.
Honestly, if you don't think that I don't know that this sounds absolutely ridiculous and totally impossible, and your question would be, well, how could this all be going on without us knowing about it? This is a plan that uses anyone and everything that it can in order to implement this globalist mindset and ultimately a globalist control.
Welcome to America Daily. I'm Jessica Beatty. In previous episodes, we've discussed climate change and policies like the Green New Deal. According to Green New Deal critic Dr. Patrick Moore, the Green movement has been hijacked by key elites in our society. Dr. Moore says the climate change catastrophe is a hoax to promote fear, raise money, gain political power, and restrict our rights. While Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal resolution did not pass, it might surprise you that there is a similar plan being implemented on a global scale as we speak, and it's called the United Nations Agenda 21, and it might already be in your local area. Agenda 21 is the UN's Sustainable Development Plan for the 21st century. It calls for governments to take control of all land use and place community rights above individual rights. The more recent Agenda 2030 is a milestone for Agenda 21's 100-year plan. Today's guest has been using her professional expertise and research skills to expose Agenda 21 for years. Rosa Koire published her book, The Green Mask, UN Agenda 21, in 2011, and it's just as relevant today as it was then. Here's my conversation with Rosa Koire. First of all, Rosa, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So you wrote a very interesting book called Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. Could you give us a little background on how you found out about the UN's Agenda 21?
Yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but I'll just say I was, I came up a liberal, pro-choice, lesbian, on the left, progressive, Democrat, all that stuff. And that was my personal life. And then professionally, I was a district branch chief for the Department of Transportation in California and expert witness in land use and land valuation. And in about, 2005 or so, I got invited to run for a seat on an oversight committee for a huge redevelopment project in a town that I owned some property in. And so I ran and I thought, well, this is cool. If I get elected, I'll be able to, sort of be the interface person between government and the people on this board who might not know anything about how government works and plans work and stuff like that. So I got elected, and then the thing started looking fishy to me. As soon as I started looking at it, it looked like they were trying to justify the plan, which was a huge redevelopment project, 1,300 acres through the center of my town. They were trying to justify it using fraudulent data. And at first I thought, well, no, this couldn't be. No, they couldn't be doing this on purpose. This must be a mistake. Let me just bring this to the attention of the government. I'll just show the city officials that, hey, did you guys know that this consultant that you just paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to has made some really severe errors that put your entire plan in jeopardy. And I genuinely thought that they might say, oh, hey, thanks, Rosa. But instead, they really came after me. They started to attack me, and that attack ended up looking like them trying to get me to lose my job, putting articles in the newspaper about me that smeared me and my wife, and then targeting her as well. And all of this was sort of like being in the Twilight Zone. I thought, how could this be possible? This doesn't make sense to me. And then while we started a nonprofit to sue to stop this plan. And while we were out there talking to property rights activists and people who a lot of times were a lot more conservative, not people that I would normally even hang out with or know. I found out about United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development. And at first I thought, oh, this is ridiculous. This is some right wing nutcase fantasy thing. This can't be possible. And, but I'm a researcher and, testify in court. My whole thing is I don't talk about anything I can't prove. So my partner said, hey, this is your thing. Why don't you investigate it? See if there's anything to it. And as I did that, it just was the most shocking thing that I've ever seen in my life. It really was a real thing. United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development. Sustainable development is not, all groovy, green, cool. In fact, it's a plan to take us to one world government, and it's in effect right now, and it really is happening. So this is kind of how I came to it, and it was slow and it was painful, and it's really had a really huge impact on my life. And this is what I'm doing, is talking to people about it.
So, this whole thing is based on the idea that there will be a climate change catastrophe soon if we don't drastically change our way of life. And this reminds me of the Green New Deal. So, is the Green New Deal connected to Agenda 21?
Oh, it sure is. Absolutely. Well, first, let me tell you what United Nations Agenda 21 Sustainable Development is. It is, first of all, it's a real plan. It's not a tinfoil hat fantasy that I made up. It's the real deal. It's a conspiracy fact, not a conspiracy theory. And it was agreed to by George H.W. Bush in 1992. It's soft law. If you go to Wikipedia, they're going to immediately tell you non-binding voluntary plan. Well, that is true, but our government agreed to it and is implementing it. And it's a global plan, but it's implemented locally. So it has lots of different names, but depending on where you are, it's a regional plan. But it's all the same plan. So the Hanoi Center 2030 regional plan is the same plan as the plan in my area, which is Plan Bay Area, which includes 101 cities and 9 counties. And so the Green New Deal is what I refer to as the Green New Cultural Revolution. This is really, it's about getting public support for a plan that they don't know anything about, and using climate change, the terror of climate change, as an impetus to make people act without asking questions, without stopping and saying, hey, how is this all going to work? What does this all mean if you stop your carbon emissions immediately, bring them down to zero in the next few years? What is that really going to look like for the world? And what they do is they use terror, because when people are really severely frightened like this, it justifies not asking questions. And when you use a plan, like when you use an idea like climate change, this is global, so it justifies a global response, and that justifies global governance. And governance is different from government, because government is representative and governance is not. It is government by unelected boards and commissions, the bureaucracy that you have absolutely no impact on at all. And this is what's happening in your local towns. It's not like it's way out there at the UN or, in Brussels or some strange thing like that. It's really right there in your city hall. It's in your town. It's a regional plan. It's a local plan. It's usually, you'll see it as a land use plan. It's a climate action plan. And these plans are designed to limit your ability to use your land and to use your water and to use energy. And you're told that this is in order to save the planet. But the plan itself is designed to limit your freedom, your individual voice, and to stop you from dissenting.
So, when I was reading your book, I was really shocked because a lot of what you wrote in your book, which was published in 2011, is happening right now in my hometown. And it only has a population of about 8,000 people. So, I was wondering if you could tell us what Agenda 21 looks like at the local level. What might people be seeing right now in their own towns?
It's funny. My book, yeah, it's amazing that that 8 years have gone by since the book came out, and it's unfortunately one of those books that doesn't age at all. It could have been written last night. So it's not like it's an old book. It's a book that hasn't, unfortunately, the world is really reflecting what that book is telling you about. And, like you said, you see it in your small town. What Agenda 21? Well, everybody thinks they know what sustainable development is. I mean, now, finally, everybody's seen the words and thinks that they know, and automatically, uh, jargon is something that is designed. It's a specific kind of language that is designed to get you to think that it's a good thing, right? Green, vibrant, walkable, bikeable, consensus, all these things, sustainable development, all of this is designed to be sort of designer buzzwords that make you think it's a good thing. And hey, we don't have to ask any questions about it because it's good, right? But the way the plan works is it's, as I said, global, but implemented locally. So there you are in a real small town, and or you could be in New York City, or you could be in London, or a small town in Italy. It's an international plan, and it's basically it says that human beings are using too much. They're using too much water, too much energy. They should be living close to their work. In fact, they should, be the ideal situation would be what you see in China, where you're living upstairs from your factory. You don't need to use any energy or any water because you don't have a yard and you hardly have any living space. And then you just go downstairs to the factory and you work, and that's your thing. There's no very little private individual space. And there's a name for this. It's an ideology, and it's also a design style called smart growth. And smart growth, the way it looks mainly in the US, you'll see it like this. It's high density development. So that's lots of condos on top of shops, or at least this is the space for shops. They might be empty. These are ground floor retail spaces, 12 feet high, built right to the edge of the sidewalk, with one car or less per unit that's up above, two or three or four more stories of residential on top. It's built along your main streets, and your streets then are narrowed to one lane in each direction. Sometimes there's a parking lane, there's going to be a bike lane, and then there's going to be a median in the middle of the street. And this is called a complete street. This is a federal program, Complete Streets. A lot of towns get funding for this. And a lot of people don't know that their properties not only they haven't really been rezoned, but they've been redesignated in your general plan, which you probably don't know anything about. But it's a plan that was state mandated back in the early 2000s, that every state should have this kind of a plan. Now, New York's a little different, but most towns do have a general plan. And these plans are actually dictating how your land use should be. And you might think it's a good thing, but you may not think it's so good if you don't actually have any say in how this happens, and that's your actual property. You own it, and you have no idea that the land use has been changed without you knowing, and now you have to build that kind of development, and very few people have the funding for that kind of development, so it often fails. And it's often guaranteed when it's some favored developer, it'll be guaranteed by your property taxes or by your funding from transportation taxes or something like that, your infrastructure financing districts. So your tax dollars are paying for that, even if you don't live there. And this is how these plans are designed. And, it's a very elaborate plan, very well designed. And I'm talking about the worldwide plan, and people really don't know about it. It's a stealth plan that's out there in plain sight.
So people might be wondering, well, I didn't vote for this agenda, so how are they implementing this without my approval? So how does that work?
Yeah, right. What is the process? George H.W. Bush agreed to this world plan in 1992 by consensus. That wasn't, there was no Senate ratification for it or anything. Didn't have to be. And then Clinton took office. He was elected in November of 92. He took office in 93. And right after that, he created the President's Council on Sustainable Development. And this was 10 cabinet level secretaries, so federal cabinet level secretaries, plus Enron, PG&E, a whole lot of captains of industry, and then a bunch of environmental groups like the Sierra Club and the Natural Resources Defense Council. And what they did was they said, we want to get this into every single area of the United States, public and private. We want to do it as soon as possible. So we're going to get into the universities. We're going to get it into the planning departments. And they gave a grant to the American Planning Association to design a book, a 12-pound book. It's called Growing Smart. And it's a legislative guidebook for planning and the management of change. And I want to say something about that word change also, because, we hope and change, that whole change thing with Obama. Everybody was like, oh, change, so groovy. Change and transformation are code words for destruction of the old way. And the old way is the nation state. That's what we live in, the nation state. We have direct impact through representative government on what happens to us. But this plan destroys the nation state, and in fact, it erases it. It's an erasure of jurisdictional boundaries, and it becomes a one world government. I'm sorry to, sound so conspiracy theory-like, but that's what it is. So, you're saying, well, hey, we didn't vote for this. How did it happen? Well, it happened administratively. The cabinet level secretary said, hey, we can get about 2/3 of this into the United States administratively without the people knowing. But then they said, the people might get pissed if they realize that they're living under a dictatorship. So we're going to come up with a new document, and we're going to commission this thing. It's called Sustainable America: A New Consensus. And you think what consensus is, agreement by all parties or something like that. But this is the new consensus, which is neutralization of the opposition, neutralizing your enemies, neutralizing and converting. And this is done actually locally, amazingly enough, through neighborhood associations, through bicycle advocacy groups, through, I know you may be sitting there listening and thinking, this is crazy. I'm in a bike group. There's nobody doing anything like that. Well, I would look at the executive board of your group and find out that they are supporting smart growth. They're supporting the complete streets plan, which is how you redesign a town. And in fact, they will attack anyone who goes up against them. And people are farmed. They're actually, they are actually searched for people who will support this plan, and then they're funded. And they may be elected officials. They may be people who are on boards. They might be in your neighborhood association, people who are encouraged to take over the neighborhood association and make this plan happen. So no, you didn't vote for it, but it is all around you. I'll tell you that, in terms of sustainability, go to the local university, go online and put in sustainability in your university name. And for example, UCLA, 509 courses on sustainability. Now, are all of these about recycling and creative reuse? Absolutely not. These are about organizational management, about being a change agent. And this is not, this isn't some really good thing. This is about how to manage people, because individual rights are seen as an obstacle to this plan.
Another part of your book that really surprised me was the chapter on the Delphi meetings and how bike groups and others were involved in this political theater. I mean, it sounds really crazy, and I think people just need to read your section on the Delphi meetings.
This stuff, honestly, if you don't think that I don't know that this sounds absolutely ridiculous and totally impossible, and your question would be, well, how could this all be going on without us knowing about it? It just sounds crazy. Of course, it is crazy. But the plan is definitely a crazy plan, but it's really a far advanced plan, and they really have some of the best public relations people in the world out there working on it. and making this plan happen. So, yes, this is what happens is you've got these charrettes or visioning meetings that your town puts on. Come on down, give us your opinion on this cool new plan for the center of your town. And you go down there on it's held at the elementary school, and you're in the, in the evening, you're over there in the auditorium, and all the parents have their knees squished up against the chairs, and you have, your town is putting on this, this video, or they've got, they have a consultant up there with slides on how the town's going to look and how beautiful we're going to remake. There's going to be street trees, and we're going to narrow Main Street, and we're going to have smart growth, this design style I was telling you about, on either side of the street. And it's just going to be great. We're going to have high-speed rail, or we're going to have light rail all through town. It's going to be wonderful. You want that, don't you? So you get this whole kind of ideology kind of presented to you. And they used what's called the Delphi technique. And I just told you that the universities train people in organizational management and and actually in being change agents. And this is what they do is they hold these meetings. They're consultants. Your city paid them. They invite people to come down, and then they design the plan already. It's the same plan all over the world. I don't care what town you're in. It's all the same. So the plan's designed already. So what they're doing, what the meeting is really about, it's not about soliciting your opinion. It's about bringing you in and actually, neutralizing and converting any dissent. So they want you to buy into the plan. So what they do is they use the Delphi technique, which was developed by the Rand Corporation in the 1950s. It was designed to bring groups of people to a predetermined outcome while giving them the idea, the notion, the illusion that it's all their idea. So you go to this thing and you think that you've got like a voice, and they've got a big pad of paper up there, and they're writing, you raise your hand, you give your idea. I'd like to see park benches. I'd like to see, whatever you want to see. Well, if it fits in with the plan, okay, great. If it doesn't fit in with the plan, it's going to end up on the floor later. And basically everyone comes out of that meeting feeling like, well, either they like it, or if they don't like it, they come out of the meeting feeling like maybe they're the only one that felt uncomfortable, or where were the property owners? We're just visioning on their property, but where the heck are they? They weren't in the meeting, right? And they don't talk to you about what's going to cost, whether they're going to have to do bonds, whether that's going to indebt you for 45 years. They don't talk about that in these plan meetings. And so everyone feels like they've done their civic duty. They've showed up for a meeting, and they've actually been Delphi'd.
Is there anything people can do to prevent Agenda 21?
Well, I'll say, as far as preventing it, too late. It's already, it's already here. And what you can do now is to just try and fight it. And the number one thing that you're doing is what you are doing right now, which is spreading the information, because people, you're going to have to start at square one with most everyone. They don't know what's happening, and they are going to be predisposed to disbelieving you right off the bat. So you want to actually break that concept of it being a conspiracy theory. It is not. This is a fact. It's not like we made it up. For quite a long time, the press continued to smear us if we even talked about Agenda 21, saying that it was a conspiracy theory. So what you want to do is first educate yourself, and then do something. Take 15 minutes a day and just do something. And by that, I mean, share the information with people. Get off of Facebook unless you're going to be sharing this kind of information. Otherwise, don't waste your time. Don't waste your time with stupid videos. And what this is designed to do is to, give you a short attention span and make you inactive. So you want to quit doing that. If you're a dope smoker, I don't care. Just don't do it until after you've done all this stuff, because drugs, whether they're psychiatric drugs or recreational drugs, are designed to make you passive. and to not care. So, don't feed into that. And the other thing, there are many, many things. I have, 20 pages in my book on stuff you can do. And a lot of it is really fun. You can have a great time anti-Delphing your local government meeting. I mean, nothing is quite as empowering as doing something like that. It's a lot of fun. It's great. And it's political theater. Another thing, you can do is talk to young people about the plan, about how they're affected in their schools and in their lives, and how difficult it is to go against the grain, and what it takes to be an individual. And gosh, there's just so much stuff that you can do. Don't donate and do not volunteer your time unless you have vetted that group. Put the name of the group in with sustainable development, see what comes out, and you're going to be shocked. Is your, if you're a religious person or you go to church or synagogue, is your pastor giving you a sermon on sustainable development? Go have a chat with your pastor. And is your congregation a member of the National Religious Partnership for the Environment, which is Agenda 21? There's 156,000 congregations in the U.S., 114 million people are members of this group and have no idea that they are. So do a little research. It doesn't take that long. You're going to have a really good time. There's nothing as empowering as feeling that you really understand what's going on, and then sharing it and having the guts to not go along to get along with this plan, because this is a worldwide, nonpartisan, grassroots fight. And there are millions of people who are part of it right now. But your mainstream media is owned by 5 major mega corporations, and they won't tell you about it. So you need to be your own press, take this on and be part of it. Join us, because you are the resistance. You've heard this, and now you are the resistance.
So we've really only touched the surface of what's going on here. But you have more detailed information in your book and online. Where can people find your work so they can learn more?
Great. Well, if you can bear to type this, type Democrats against UN Agenda 21.com, Democrats against UN Agenda 21.com. And if you probably can't remember that, just put Rosa and Agenda 21, and you're going to get lots of videos, and my book, which is Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21. You can get that at Amazon. You can get it from us directly and not have to deal with Amazon. And you can also, so there are many libraries that have it. If your library doesn't have it, buy it for your library and make your librarian put it in there. So we're out there. There's a lot of great information, and I welcome your participation. We do not have to agree. As I say to my many, many extreme conservative friends, I say, you know what? We'll fight about that stuff later, after we win this fight. This is the most important one.
Well, Rosa, thank you so much for joining us and for the work that you do.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Have you noticed Agenda 21 in your area? We'd love to hear your story. You can find us on social media at AD Top Story. Once again, I'm Jessica Beatty. Thanks for listening to America Daily. Until next time.
This is America Daily, bringing you the best in truthful news updates and in-depth reports happening now.